Thank you for tuning in again tonight. We have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Welcome to Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Thank you for tuning in. I have in the studio with me tonight Miss Rosalyn Joseph. She is going to tell you the story of her son who was killed November 29, 2004. Keep in mind that the purpose of my show is to educate people about the criminal justice system, enlighten people, inform people, and to stimulate conversation about what goes on in the criminal justice system in Harris County so that we can all be informed. I can tell you a different angle from what the Houston Chronicle is going to tell you, a different angle from what the news stories are going to give you at night. We can talk about real crimes with real people and the people who are affected by them. So Rosalyn was on the show last week as a court watcher and told me after the show about a very compelling story of an incident that happened with her son. We will talk about the pros and cons. He was only 19 years old when he was killed by the police officer. So we're going to take about 15 minutes and let her tell her story. And I welcome any call-ins with any comments at 713-807-1794. Thank you, Rosalyn, for agreeing to be my guest and telling this very important and heart-wrenching story.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with Joshua being 19 years old. He had a GED. He just had a new baby, and he was looking for work. I guess we need to do a little bit of the background of the girlfriend that he was living with, why he was living in the situation he was living in, so people will understand how this situation escalated to a fight and later his murder.
Okay. He and his girlfriend were living with my mother. They had asked to live with me, but I told him no. You know, you all are not married. You can't live with me or whatever. But he wanted...
And at the time, he was 19.
He was 19 and she was 20.
And you had 3 children, raising 3 children by yourself at the time.
He's my oldest, and so I had 2 younger daughters. I have 2 younger daughters at home that I was raising at that time. My oldest daughter was in middle school, and I had a toddler of my own. So
you didn't think it was a good environment for his girlfriend to move in with her 2 children.
Exactly.
And she was 20 years old, and you were 19 years old. And tell us why you didn't want them to live with you.
Well, for one, she comes from a very toxic family, you know, just a different background. I really didn't know that much about her, only what I heard about her. But I know that that was somebody that he loved. He had been knowing her from when they were adolescents. So
you said he knew her since he was about 11 years old?
Yeah, since he was about 11 years old. And I had always heard about her, but I didn't really know her until, you know, she got pregnant with this baby. So at that time, I just didn't think it was, you know, at that age, you really don't need to be living together. So I was trying to be the good mom, I guess, and, you know, try to help him see the better part of that, you know. But my mother, you know, Joshua knew how to pull on her heartstrings, so she agreed to let them come and stay with her. And it was her and her 2 children that lived there with my mom.
Do you remember how old her 2 children were at the time?
I want to say the son was 5. Was he 5? No, he might have been 4. And the daughter was 3. So they were little kids.
So early in 2004, Joshua, who's 19, and his girlfriend, who's 20, with 2 little kids that are not his children, come and live with your mother. And it's in the same
in
neighborhood
the
that
same
you live
neighborhood.
in and that she was from.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
What neighborhood is it? Is that Sunnyside?
Cloverland.
Cloverland. Okay.
And she lived 2 streets behind my mother. My mother lives on Botany, and she lived on Madden. So it was 2 streets behind. And, I just thought that it wasn't a good idea for them to be living together. But as I said, my mom let them come and stay with her or whatever. And this particular morning, I got a call from my sister saying, Mama's been trying to call you. Joshua and Tamika are over there fighting. You need to go check on them. So I said, okay. So I got up and went over there. And when I got there, they were arguing and they were fighting, hitting each other, fighting. So at the time, I didn't know how to stop the fight myself. And so I called the cops because I didn't know what to do. I mean, Joshua he was angry. She was angry. And what my mom told me was that morning when Joshua woke up to Tamika hitting him in the head with the cordless phone. So that enraged him when he woke up. He woke up angry. And I mean, I can
So
understand.
he's asleep and she's beating him upside the head with a cordless phone.
Exactly, exactly. So I can see a person being angry, waking up to somebody hitting you in the head with a phone.
But you also said she was mad because he had spent her $35 she had been saving.
Exactly. She had been saving $35, and she said that he spent the money that she was saving to buy her kids some Christmas presents, and he was telling her that, well, I'll get some more money. I needed the money. I don't know what he spent the money on or whatever, but they were fighting. I called the cops when I got there. And at that particular time, I just didn't know what else to do. So at, after they fought for a while, Joshua left. So when he left the house, I called the police back and told them, that's okay, we don't need you to come. So after he left, and my sisters came by, and so they took the girlfriend to her parents, to her grandmother's house, which was around the corner. And a few minutes later, Joshua came back. And he said, y'all let her go. Y'all let her take my baby. I want my baby. So that was the big thing
And let me
because
stop you there. We talked about her living with your mother, Joshua's grandmother, with 2 kids, but by now there's 3 kids.
it's 3
Because
kids.
she had a baby November 1st. Is that right?
Exactly.
November 1st, 2004. So when they
Exactly.
started living together, she was pregnant with your son's baby and had 2 prior children and had lost a baby, actually.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so now she's on her baby number 4, but that's Joshua's only kid.
That's right.
So when she left after the argument, she left with all 3 kids.
Exactly. No, well, when she left, yeah, she left with all 3 kids, her son, her daughter, and the baby that they had together, my granddaughter. So he was very upset that we let her take the baby. But I told him, Joshua, don't worry about it. We can get the baby back. Just cool down, let everything cool off, and you can go and you can get your baby later, because, she had already had one baby that passed away that January of that same year. And so, it was a stressful situation altogether. I think that maybe a part of him was scared that his baby would die as well because the other baby died from neglect.
Oh, so the baby had been born. The 3rd baby was born and died
And died.
afterwards. Okay,
So
so
yeah.
on his mind, he thought there was some neglect issues that could have occurred.
Exactly, and then he didn't want that to happen to his own baby, because even though the baby that passed away was not his baby, he took care of that baby. I mean, the baby lived with him. He got up at night with the baby. He took care of the baby. So when the baby passed away, he really had a hard time. But by this time, after his baby was born, he was getting himself back together and, just really being diligent about, I guess, being the man that he wanted to be, putting away childish things, And so, anyway, once he found out that she had left with the baby, he went around to her grandmother's house to try to get the baby back. But at that time, that's when the altercation came about with him and the cop.
Now let's talk about whether or not. So were you at your at your mother's house when he left to go look for his baby?
Exactly.
And you heard through the grapevine that he had a weapon.
Yes.
And tell me how you heard through the grapevine he had a weapon, since you did not see him with a weapon.
Well, my sister actually said that she saw him take the weapon to stick it in his pants when he left the house. My sister said she saw it.
So your sister lived with your mother also?
No, none of us lived with my mother. He did. But
Okay.
we came over that morning when all the commotion was going on because my mother called us to come, you know. So my sister said as he was leaving out the house, that's when she saw him with the gun, and she told him to leave the gun, but he went on about his business, you know. And so shortly after, that's when we heard the gunshots. We heard 6 gunshots. And we got up and we rushed around the corner to her grandmother's house. And by this time, Joshua was laying in the driveway. And he was dying at that time. But the onlookers said that once the police came on the scene, I guess Joshua was trying to get her to come outside or whatever. Nobody said that he had his gun waving it around. They just said that he was talking to her through the window. And by this time the cops came up, because I guess after I canceled the call, maybe they called the police from her grandmother's house, you know, once he got there. And he, in turn, when the cop got there, he said, "Come on, Josh, let me talk to you. You know, just sit in the back of the police car and cool off." Well, Joshua said, "Okay." But the onlooker said that once Joshua was getting ready to get in the car, the officer proceeded to put cuffs on him. Well, then they got into a fight, he and the cop. And the cop was upset because Joshua was getting the best of him. That's what he told me, the guy told me. And from somewhere in that, the cop saw Joshua's gun sticking in his pants. Now, nobody told me that Joshua pulled his weapon. I don't know if he did or not, but I do know that my son was shot at 6 times. He was hit 4 times. And by the time, like, it was only not even 5 minutes for me to get there because, you know, it's like right around the corner. So when I got there and jumped out the car to run up to my son, the same cop that shot him, held the gun on me and told me, "Don't take another step. Don't take another
Point
step."
to me how the officer held the gun at you. Was he like doing to you
No,
like
he
this?
said, "Don't take another step. Don't take another step."
And were you screaming, "That's my child,
I
I'm the
said,
mother"?
"That's my son." I said, "What are you going to do, shoot me?" He said, "Don't take another step." So I didn't take another step.
And all you were trying to do was
get to my child.
and hug him.
That's it.
And while he took his last
That's
breath.
it. I saw so much blood coming out of his mouth. I didn't know if he was bleeding from, I didn't know where the blood was coming from. I just wanted to get to him, you know, just to help him, you know, and he wouldn't let me get close to him. But by this time, another cop came on the scene, and he kind of put his arms around me, and he said, "I can't let you go up there." And he looked over his shoulder, and he said, "He's already gone." And I told him, "I know. I saw him take his last breath." So, you know,
what a horrible story. You also told me that prior to when Joshua was upset and leaving to go get his baby, he said, you know, "Mom, I'd rather die," or something. What did he say?
yeah, he told me, he said, I said, "Joshua, just let her keep the baby." I say, because I say, we can get the baby back, you know. And he said, "Mama," he said, "before I go back to jail, I'll die."
Right. And we'll talk about later Joshua going to jail. He went to jail as a juvenile. His only record was a juvenile offense in which he did have to do TYC time, Texas Youth Commission, for a dirty UA. He was on juvenile probation, and he had a dirty UA, so he had marijuana in his system. So he had to do 18 months in Conroe at a juvenile facility. And that's what he's talking about, going back to jail. So, so you see him take his last breaths, and what happened after that? That had to be very awful. You have a small child, an infant that's 18 months, you have a 13-year-old, and now your 19-year-old has passed away.
It was just, you know, I've often wondered, you know, when you see parents on TV and something tragic has happened to their children and you wonder, oh my God, they're not crying, aren't they
Because you're in
upset?
shock.
Yeah, but you know, you don't realize that until you go through it. That once something like that happens, they don't know how to react. So, you know, I didn't know how to react. I felt like I should have been screaming. I felt like I should have been having a nervous breakdown right there on the scene, but I was just so, I had peace. Not peace that my son passed away, but I really just can't, I can't describe it. It's something that you would never know unless you went through it. You know, and I hope that not even my worst enemy would have to go through that, because it's something that you never get over it. You know, being that it was right after Thanksgiving, and as a matter of fact, Thanksgiving was the last day I'd seen my son before he passed away. And it's funny how things happen, because we were riding in the car and we were holding hands. Wasn't saying much, you know, we were listening to the radio, and somebody said a word on the radio, and he said, Mama, what does that mean? I told him, I don't know, I'll look it up and get back with you. And you know, we just kind of laughed about it, and then after that he said, when I dropped him off at home, he said, okay, Mama, you take it easy. I said, okay, baby, you take it easy too. And that was the last civil conversation that we had ever had, you know, before that day. That morning when I saw him, the only thing I said to him was, just let her have the baby and stop fighting, and that was it.
Right, right. And then, how many months later, whenever there's a police shooting, a police shoots someone, the police officers are brought before the grand jury, and the grand jury is comprised of 12 citizens who volunteer to serve through one of our 22 district courts. They serve for 3 months, and they hear all cases that are felonies, people charged with felonies, and police shootings. And so they have to decide whether to indict them, whether they think that the police officer used excessive force, and whether they think it was proper. There's something disturbing about the process that went before the grand jury with this police officer in this case. And let's talk about the grand jury process as you know it. Were you subpoenaed to come before the grand jury?
I was subpoenaed to come, but I never went before the jury. Um, his girlfriend did. She went before the jury, and she told me that when she was in there, they showed her pictures of Joshua's dead body on the slab at the coroner's office. And they asked her, who is this? And she told them who it was. And she said that they threatened her that if she said anything about what went on that day between he and the police officer, that they would take her children.
And that's very disturbing to me, that the police officers or the DA's office would say, I'll take your children. And it's disturbing because I've heard it about 50 times. You know, if you're hearing this for the first time, you might think, she's lying. But I'm telling you, as a criminal defense lawyer, I have heard that so many times, where I ask clients, well, why did you talk to the police? Why did you tell them that? Why did you mislead them or give them that information when you knew you had a right to remain silent? And they'll tell me, because the officer said he was going to take my girlfriend's children from her if I didn't do whatever they said I was going to do, which is a way of coercion, and it's totally inappropriate. If you get that same officer on the witness stand under oath, they would swear under oath that they didn't do that. But I have heard it too many times from too many different people from different walks of life, so I know it's a form of psychological coercion. And if you're poor, this girl lived in a house with 13 people before she lived with your mother.
Exactly.
And she is from a very low income environment, and she loves her children. She's young, she's only 20 years old. And if police officers, the big government says, I'm gonna take your children if you tell what happened, then obviously she's not gonna tell what happened. She doesn't have the money to fight CPS and Child Protective Services to keep her children. And that's the threat that they make. And so I don't find that to be unusual. I believe it. I believe when she told you. Did you believe her?
I believed her, because the officer, you know, when he came out of the room, you know, that they were all in, he couldn't even look me in the face. you know, and she was crying. And when I asked her, what's the matter, you know, and she said, Miss Rosalyn, you just don't know what they did to me when I was in there. She said they threatened to take my kids. And that's when she proceeded to say that they showed her the pictures of him on the slab. And, you know, and I would say, you know, how awful is that, you know? And I spoke with the district attorney, was his name was Army.
Joe Omby?
Joe Omni. And I told him, I said, you know, everything that happened that morning, you know, everything that Joshua did wasn't right, but everything that he did wasn't wrong either. You know, and I just think that they could have found the officer could have found a better way. I don't think that he had to kill Joshua. I think that he could have wounded him in some way or another. If he was going to shoot at him, if he was going to shoot him, he could have wounded him. He didn't have to kill him.
I'm trying to role play with this. So the officer goes to a domestic dispute where Joshua's outside. I'm trying to visualize it. Joshua's outside fussing with the girl to come outside to bring the baby. The police officer comes, asks him to settle down, sit in the car. Joshua thinks he can just settle in the car. So for police safety, officers are supposed to handcuff people and they put them in the back seat. Because if they do have a gun that's concealed, they can shoot him in the back of the head.
Exactly.
And so I can see him asking him to handcuff him. I think that was appropriate. I think Joshua was already emotionally distraught. I don't know what do you think the officer should have done? Okay, because it sounds like he was doing right by trying to calm him down, but then there's police procedure where you can't, because a few officers have been shot in the back of the head, and that's when they didn't properly handcuff them or frisk them.
And I can understand that, you know, maybe if to me now, I'm speaking from my you know, my perspective. I think that maybe if he had said, well, you know, Joshua, I want you to sit in the back of the police car, but I'm not going to take you to jail, but I have to put handcuffs on you because, you know, I came to a domestic scene. You know, I don't know if he had enough time to explain this to him, but I think that maybe if he would have explained himself a little bit clearly, you know, maybe it could have been resolved differently, you know. That's my thought.
We want to show pictures of Joshua just so the viewers can have an idea of what he looks like. Go ahead and show his pictures, please. Tell us what picture that is.
That's a picture of Joshua when he was 5 months old on my mother's couch when we lived in Crosby.
So who is the man standing there?
That's Joshua. That was April of 2004 on Easter Sunday. That was the April before he died.
So that's Easter. Okay, and who is that?
And that's a picture of Joshua when he was 9 years old. No, he might have been 8 on that picture. And that's his sister, Diamond. That's my oldest daughter. When she was 2, she was 1.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a picture of me, Joshua, and Diamond, or at Joshua's commencement ceremony.
When he was getting his graduation, GED graduation. Okay. He's like 17 at that time. Is
Yes,
that correct?
ma'am.
And so 2 years after that picture is when he was killed. Okay. So the girlfriend is shown a picture because before the grand jury, when someone is dead, you have to identify them. So they'd either have to pick the mother or the girlfriend to identify them. So they have to do that to the grand jurors. But she should have been allowed to tell her story as to what happened. But we're going to get back to Rosalyn telling us how you think that the officer could have protected himself without killing your son.
You know, I just think if he had explained himself a little differently, you know.
Now, was the officer alone?
He was alone. Okay. He was alone. And, you know, that's what I couldn't.
But it's morning. It's daytime, right?
It was exactly 7:56 in the morning when Joshua was shot.
Okay. So the officer's by himself, and he's saying, calm down, get in the car, and he wants to put handcuffs, and then they start fist fighting, basically.
Yeah. Because Joshua didn't want to be handcuffed, and so they started fighting, and one of the neighbors told me that he saw everything because he was outside cutting his yard. And so that's when he said the cop got mad at your son because your son got the best of him. And like I say, he said that Joshua didn't pull his gun. I don't know.
Did the neighbor see the gun?
He didn't see the gun until after Joshua was shot. So, but he did say that he did not see him pull his gun on the officer. Now, like I say, I don't know because I wasn't there. I don't know if Joshua did or not, and I can't say that he wouldn't have because he was so angry that morning. So,
Right,
you
but we're
know,
just going by your investigation of what, because you weren't there,
I wasn't there, but
but the
that's what I
neighbors
was
did.
told.
Right. And was the neighbor able to tell that story before the grand jury?
No, because they didn't want him. The police department did not want him. I think they threatened him not to even show up at the grand jury. He was subpoenaed, but he didn't show up because they threatened him because he was known as a neighborhood drunk.
Okay.
But he lived in that house. He kept his yard nice. He had been living there. We grew up together, he and I. So, um, you know, a person doesn't have to lie about what they saw. You know, nobody wants to lie to get the police in trouble because they're here to protect and serve us. So those are the people that we trust. But it's been so much going on with the police and excessive force that people are not trusting the police like they should have. You know, 2 years after my son died, another boy in the same neighborhood was killed because I think he was high on some drugs or something, and I don't know if he had a weapon or not. Oh, I think he did have a weapon. He threw his weapon down, but they still shot him, killed him right in front of his mother's house. So, you know, it's just too much of that going. And then looking at the Chad Holly situation, how they aggressively kicked him, you know, it's just too much of that going on, and it's too much of it happening to young men. I would say young black men because that's what I see, and not only young black men, just young men, period. And it's something has to happen, something has to change.
It does. So I want to also talk to the viewers about that. If Joe Omby was the prosecutor and he subpoenaed the witness, but the witness didn't show up because the police officer went out and threatened him, that's bad. Don't you think that's bad? And if the police officer was justified in shooting um, Joshua, then why would they want to suppress the neighbor from saying what he saw? If he was right in doing it, why wouldn't they want the neighbor to tell the story? Why wouldn't they want the girlfriend to tell her story if they were proper, if they felt he was proper? That's the thing that bothers me about it. Because as an officer, I understand an officer being afraid. I understand once the situation is out of control, if he saw the boy's gun in his waistband, I can see the officer getting upset. Now, what about tasers? Did they have tasers in 2004?
The tasers, according to the detectives that showed up, the tasers had just come into Houston that day.
Wow. So November 29th, 2004 was the first day we had tasers, and so they weren't
They hadn't been
distributed.
distributed.
They haven't been distributed to the officers yet. All right. So, but do you think an officer would have used a taser if he thought that he saw a gun in his waistband? Because a taser,
I doubt it.
I doubt it. I
I
doubt
doubt
that
it.
too.
I doubt it. But you know, I just think that not just because it's my son, if it was anybody's son, I just think that, you know, to deal with people, you have to deal with people on different, you have to know how to talk to people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And maybe whatever tactic he used to talk him down, maybe he didn't use the proper tactic, you know.
Right.
I'm saying, uh, you know, it's a lot of racial profiling going on as well. And, you know, sometimes when not trying to play a race card or anything like that, but sometimes people don't relate to each other properly when they're different races.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I really think that, and sometimes you see a lot of cocky cops, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like he held the gun on me. What was I gonna do? I didn't have a gun. He didn't see a gun on me.
Right. And you're the mother.
And I'm
Let
the
you
mother.
go
Let me go to my son.
hug him until he
yeah,
dies.
you know what I'm saying? But he didn't allow me to do that. You know, so I was very angry just at the part where you would draw your weapon on me.
Right.
You know.
Did you have to go to therapy for that or anything?
No, I haven't had any therapy, but talking about it has been my therapy because, you know, it's easy for me to talk about it. Uh, but I talk about it because, you know, even going through a bad situation, it's always a blessing in a bad situation. You know, I have my sanity. Had I not had my other two children, I probably wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you about it. Um, had I not prayed the day before, I probably wouldn't. If I the experience that I had the day before his death, I really think is what kept me, was my relationship with God. And not to mention that that particular day, just sitting there watching that whole scenario, I could hear the Lord talking to me. You know, he said to me, he said, you know, Rosalind, he said, they accused your son and they accused mine.
Mm.
He said, and they killed your son and they killed mine.
Mm.
He said, your life is not much different than mine.
Mm.
And I know it was the Lord talking to me because I ain't got enough sense to think, to think that on my own, and that
Right.
happened right then and there.
Mm.
I'm looking at my child lie dead on the ground, and I'm sitting on the curb across from the scene looking at his body, and that is what I heard.
Wow. How powerful is that?
And that's what I really believe, that's what kept me. I really do
Wow.
believe that.
Wow.
I really do.
Religion is very important in our coping mechanism.
It is.
It is very important, and I can definitely relate to that. Now, we talked earlier in this show about Joshua having one juvenile run-in. Tell us about that.
I think Joshua was about, I want to say 12 or 13. And the neighbor next door said someone had broken into her house a few weeks before. And I was cleaning out a closet in my house and found the woman's a bag from her house with her name in it.
Mm.
So when I saw that, I called the police, and because I didn't want my child to get in trouble or to be a habitual criminal or anything like that. So I was trying to help him, by calling the police, thinking that maybe I could scare some sense into him, because I'm a single parent. His dad and I had divorced couple of years before that, so.
And you said Joshua had taken the divorce very hard.
He did. His father just kind of stayed away from us, didn't come around anymore. So he was very upset about that. We were teenage parents when we had him, and we didn't get married until Joshua was probably 9 or 10. So we didn't stay married that long. But anyway, he was upset about the relationship of being broken. And I think that played a lot into his new habits that he was doing, because Joshua had always been a straight A student, always been athletic. He was on the National Junior Honor Society in middle school. I was always a good kid. But after that divorce and everything, he just kind of changed. And I think that played a lot into him using drugs or whatever.
What kind of drugs do you think he used?
Marijuana. I think at the time when he and a girlfriend was together, I think they both at one time was using pills or whatever. So her background wasn't the best. Her dad was alcoholic. Her mom was then on crack as well, because she didn't even go to the funeral. She didn't even go to Joshua's funeral because she was so messed up.
The mother.
The mother.
The girl's mother.
The girl's mother. And so, brokenness, when people are broken, they do broken things.
They do.
They do.
One of the things you said that's real poignant and appropriate is that toxic relationships bring about toxic results.
It does.
And they had a toxic relationship.
They did. They did. I think the relationship between them had always been toxic, even in the beginning, because I'd never heard anything good about this girl, even when she was a little girl. And then to meet her as a young woman, I just tried to embrace her, because telling him to stay away from her was just only going to push him toward her. So, I don't know. I mean, you never can say. People can change, but you can't change people. Time has to change people. What's the word I'm trying to use? Maturity has to change people.
Right.
And if you don't change the people that you hang around, you won't ever change. So you have to change your environment as well.
And one of the things that's difficult as a parent is trying to explain to your children the toxicity of relationships. It's similar to the case we talked about last week with your nephew involved in a relationship where the girl gets hurt, she breaks her hip, a pelvic bone, she's in a wheelchair for a year. I mean, it's all these toxic relationships, and young people not being able to handle their emotions. Um, and your son had to have it right now. He had to have his, his baby instead of calming down. But he's in a situation where he's dealing with a girl that's going to push his buttons, and he's going to respond to the buttons being pushed.
Exactly.
But that's all immaturity.
It is.
Because when you get older, somebody has to calm down when the other person's upset and realize there is a tomorrow, and we can talk about it tomorrow when we have cooler heads.
Exactly.
But you don't understand that when you're young.
You don't understand that when you're young.
But whoever thinks an argument that's out of control will turn into getting killed, though.
And to this very day, I always tell her she's doing a little bit better. She's been struggling herself with all of that happening to Joshua. I always tell her, you have to keep away from these people. She still has toxic relationships, just with the company that she keeps.
Has she had more kids?
Yes.
Oh, my
She's
goodness.
had 2 more kids since then,
So she has 5 kids now?
She has 6 altogether, but 5 living. And so, you just can't get that through her head, but the only thing that I can try to do is, as her daughter's grandmother, I try to put the best positive that I have into her. And if you tell her, it'll take root. She has to grow into what I say. But I'm sure, because I always say people have downtime. We all have time to think about and reflect on the things that happen throughout the day. We often reflect on what people say to us, the things that happen in the course of a day. So it's not like she don't think about it. It's just when she arrived to that maturity level to change. If she ever does, I mean, I hope she does. Because,
I know you do, because
yeah.
you have a grandbaby being raised in that environment. This is unusual tonight. I haven't gotten any callers. Please call us. The number is on the screen, and weigh in on your comments at 713-807-1794. But we were talking about his juvenile record. So how old was he when you figured out that he broke into the neighbor's house?
I want to say he was 13 or 14, maybe 14.
Okay.
And he went to TYC. I mean,
But
well,
at first
he went to juvenile.
Right.
But he kept having dirty urine. So eventually he ended up going to TYC.
And you were working, so you couldn't control him smoking marijuana while you would work as a single parent. And apparently his father was not participating in raising him. Where was his father?
Living somewhere else, doing his own thing.
In the same city, though?
In the same city.
But did not participate. So the neighbor's house that he broke into, did you tell the neighbor?
Oh, yeah, I told her. I said, Miss Jerry, I'm sorry. I found out who broke into your house. My son had something to do with that, but I want you to know that, I took care of it. I called the police on him, and, if you want to press charges on him, I understand, but she did not press charges on him. She said that hopefully by you calling the police, he learns not to do these things again. So,
what had you told your son about not breaking in people's houses or I mean, had you ever, I mean, I know you had to have told him something, but what did you tell him? Prior to that,
prior to that, I never thought he would do anything like that.
Okay.
I was just shocked when I found, because he was not raised like that.
In hindsight, do you think that you should have warned him about certain things even before he did it?
Probably.
And should we as mothers tell our kids, look, we go to church, we talk about what we should and should not do, but you don't break into your neighbor's houses. You don't take things that don't belong to you. I know I've always tried to tell that to my daughter. It doesn't mean that she follows it, but I think that sometimes there's something missing. Because I think when we were young, people would tell us not to do certain things.
People told us not to do certain things, and we just did not do certain things because you would think about, what would my parents say if I did that? What would they do to me if I did that?
Why do you think that's missing? Why do you think kids don't care anymore about what people think? Or how you would react to what they think?
I think that now kids have pretty much given up on themselves. I think that a lot of kids think that nobody cares about me. They don't care about what I do, which was not the case in my son's you know, it wasn't his case because we always talked. We always talked about life, and you know, I'm sure that.
I asked for calls. I got a caller. Let
Okay,
me take this
good.
call. Thank you. Caller, thank you for calling. I was getting lonely.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I was just letting you know that I'm a single parent just like she is. I told my child all the things that he should not do about breaking in people's houses and stuff, and he went out there and did it anyway.
Mm.
I said that I'm the biggest fan. If I find out, I'm going to report you.
So what'd
Turn
you
you
do?
in.
What'd you do?
Turn him in.
Wow. How did the story turn out?
Adjudication.
Okay. How's he doing right now? Is he still on the deferred adjudication now?
Yeah, for right now, yeah, in boot camp.
Okay. So how old is he?
He's right now, he's 19. It didn't do any good. They're going to do what they want to do. It's like every morals we taught them, take them to church, do whatever we supposed to do with them, like we was brought up. It didn't matter.
Is his father in his life?
Nope. He live in the same city, too.
I don't know why I think that has something to do with it. Do you think that could have something to do with it too,
Definitely,
ma'am?
I say, if you would show him more emotional support, he wouldn't be like that.
Give them attention. It seems like they act out in gangs and in groups with boys.
Like emotional support like the mother do.
Like the mother, yeah, because they don't listen to us for some reason, but it seems like when they have more interaction with the father and actually do things with him, not just call him and how you doing, but,
Well,
you know, have a
I
routine.
tried to pay his father to spend time with him.
Well, you did what you could, sweetheart. God bless you, and let's just pray for him that it doesn't turn out tragic and that somehow he learns. I've noticed in the criminal law business since I've been in it, once they get to be, no matter how hard-headed they are, no matter how violent they might even be, when they get to be about 30, for some reason they calm down. That's a long time, but
Lord,
they seem to calm
help me,
down
Lord, help me.
if it doesn't happen before then. You know, it just seems like no matter, I mean like the most violent of the dudes, the shooters, the robbers with guns, it seems like by the time they get 30, if they can make it that long, whether in jail or not, they seem to have seen enough people that they really care about dying, like a grandmother or not just a friend. They've seen enough experiences, they can look back at 30 and say, I could have had this if I hadn't chosen this life. And it just seems like if they do make it, they survive. But how do we get them there? That's the problem. Well, God bless you. Thank you for calling, and we'll just have to pray that.
But I have one question, another which come for her. In other words, for the lady,
Yes, ma'am.
tell her, try to get them up to 18. Do what your part. That's what the Bible say about men law.
That's right.
That's true.
That's
Okay?
right.
And you can just do all you can do. But if he go out there and do something, it is not your sin.
No, it's not. And you know, one of my friends, she actually told me, she said, you know, that's not your shame, that's his shame. Don't you be ashamed. That's his shame because you taught him
Yeah.
differently. I agree with you.
Because I tell my son now, you have to walk with God and Jesus. I cannot walk that walk. I'm going straight and you're going crooked, and I can't follow you.
That's right.
I know as a parent, though, it's hard
It's
hard
hard.
not to blame yourself, though. But I do agree with you, and it's a struggle. But we do have to support each other, and we have to try to help each other in neighborhoods and communities and families. And maybe when your son gets out of boot camp, are you involved in a church where maybe there's some men that maybe he can get involved in some type of program with the men?
Well, right now, it's his walk now, not mine. I can just try to support him if he's being productive, but if he's not, I cannot be there.
Okay, well, if he gets out, you know, you can send him over to our men at the Path to Freedom program at St. John's downtown. There are a lot of guys who are ex-cons that work with kids or people who are getting out of jail to try to help them, and it seems to be a real good moral support system for men and women. So if you want to point him to our direction, I'll try to point him into the right direction, just to give him a choice, maybe to come to church and see if he can find some men he can relate to.
Because you got men in the church that don't even spend time with them.
That's true. Call me. Call us back when he gets out. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
God bless you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
All right. So where do we leave off?
Um,
We were talking about him being on juvenile probation for breaking into the neighbor's house, and you did the old school way. You talked to the neighbor, you apologized to her, she forgave him. He was on probation, wouldn't stop smoking weed. I don't know what's up with that with kids. They won't
I
stop
don't know
smoking
either.
weed. And do you think it was appropriate, though, for him to go to TYC for 18 months for smoking weed?
No, I don't. I don't. No, I don't. When they told me that, I was like, oh Lord,
That's
you know,
awful.
that was like going to prison for 18 months. You know,
That is.
where that's exactly what it was. You know,
And
and
how was it, like 16 or something? So since he was 16 and went to TYC, he got his GED in TYC. That celebration, was that in TYC, the one with the cap and gown
yes,
picture that we
ma'am.
showed? And then you said he got a certificate in cabinet making while there.
Yes, he did. So, you know, and everybody there liked him, you know. Like I say, he was a good child. He was a good child. But I think environment has a lot to do with it, and the choices that they make, the people they choose to hang around. You know, I was never a person that migrated to the bad children. You know, I always wanted to stay away from them. And I never had a problem with him being around troublemakers, you know. He was always a peacemaker.
Let's take another call, please.
Okay.
Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. You're on.
Yes, I watch your show every Wednesday, and I was calling in to tell Rosalyn that I commend her on, you know, having courage to come on TV, you know, to tell about her son, and she has my prayers, and she is my neighbor.
Oh, that's so
Oh,
sweet.
thank you.
Does she know who you are? Do you know the voice, Rosalyn? Okay.
It's Dorothy.
Miss Dorothy. Yeah, she lives
Yeah.
across the street.
Okay.
Okay, then.
Thank you. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
Thank
supporting her.
you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Uh-huh.
So did you tell her to watch, or did she just coincidentally
No,
watch
she
anyway?
just coincidentally watched.
Okay,
Yeah,
how funny.
she's my dad's neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, the kids are interesting. So he gets a cabinet making, but that's a hard, I guess he never got a job in that.
He never got a job in that. I think he had interviewed for like telemarketing, sales, things like that.
But he was really crazy about this girl.
He was. I don't know what kind of.
So you said he was madly in love with her.
Yes, and you know she almost can't go forward because I think she feels like she'll never have anybody to love her like Joshua did. It's sad. It's really sad.
It's sad.
It's really sad. I mean, even when you talk to her, you can see it in her eyes. That was the love of her life. They just had they were young, silly, foolish, and just went about things the wrong way.
Why do you think he took a gun to try to ask for his baby back?
I
Because
don't
that
know.
was just the immature decision that he
I
made.
think it had to be because, you know, I didn't even realize after Joshua died, every year we would get a postcard in the mail from the Houston Gun Show. So he had been going to the Houston Gun Show. I guess he was fascinated with guns.
And you didn't even know that?
I didn't even know it because when he was a little boy, I wouldn't even let him play with guns.
Wow.
And that just show you, no matter how much you try to get them out of things, they, like the lady said, they'll do whatever it is they want to do.
Wow. Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King.
Yes, I was just calling to comment about the show.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think Rosalyn is doing a great job. And what I do think that could really be a help is that if they would employ our young fellas and the young men with jobs, something to do, because they really do want to work, and they just getting turned down and knocked down every time they try.
That's true.
So
I
if they
agree
would
with you.
just give them employment somewhere, that would help tremendous a lot.
I
think it
agree with
would.
you. I agree with you. It is so, that is one of the biggest challenges that we face. In fact, I joined a group a few years ago called the American Leadership Forum, the section on criminal justice, and that was my plea to the criminal justice leaders in Houston. Let's try to go to these big employers at Marathon Oil and all these oil companies and see if there could be some kind of staged-in program that we could use our influence to ask them to help them, even if they're the ones on probation, to pay them only like $4 an hour while they training or something. And if and the ones who want to work will succeed and get a real job there, and the ones who don't will go back to prison. But at least I think we can save half of them. But one of the points that the other members of the group said was that, well, the economy is bad and so many people who want jobs can't get jobs, so why should we help them? But my issue is that it helps them by helping the economy because they won't be stealing while we're at work. Because when kids get turned down, they're watching TV all day. They want to drive a new car like they see on TV. They want the same things everybody else does. So obviously they need a little bit of help. They've gone the wrong way. And now with computers, you know everything that's ever happened with someone in the court system. And it's harder and harder to get a job. And they're too young to understand that they're messing their lives up, no matter how much you tell them. So if we've got to try to step in and do something. My clients, I help them get jobs as best I can. But a lot of times, like the city of Houston hires felons, then they're the biggest employer in the city. But if they have no new spaces, because people, even if they're ex-cons, they get a job and they stay there for 30 or 40 years, and it's just no new positions. So there is something that we need to do, and I'm just letting you know I am on the battlefield working on it.
Yes, because and then they're making it harder now because, well, my son, he got in trouble, and so what he did is he got a barber's license because he was incarcerated.
Right.
That was like the only thing that he could go into that his background wouldn't affect. So after he got it, then he got in trouble again. So no matter how much we tell them, they will do what they want to do. And now he cannot renew his license if you have a certain felony on it or something, a certain conviction. They won't even give you your license back.
And that's crazy. That part, ma'am, you can call your legislature, your state rep. I know that sounds corny, but you need to. Who is your state representative? Do you know?
It should be Rodney Ellis.
Yeah, he's the senator, so you should have somebody under him that's your state rep. But you can contact him as your senator. I know Harold Dutton has a list. If you live in his area, I live in 3rd Ward. My state representative is Garnett Coleman.
Well, I'm in the same area as Rosalyn because she was talking about little Reggie that got shot in front of his mother's house. I seen that happen.
Okay.
Did you testify before the grand jury?
No, but I seen it happen. They didn't even call me or anything. And Reggie was on drugs at the time, but he did not have the gun in his hand.
That's
he
right.
had a Bible in his hand. And he said the gun down and the Bible. They could have tasered him, but no, they shot him.
Shot him down like a dog.
That's cold.
They did.
That's cool. One of the things I want to do in this show, though, we talk about the problems and the complaints, but to also empower us to be involved. If you have a jury summons, go to jury duty. Say you can be fair and impartial. You know, as minorities, we're the fairest. We'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But if you're wrong, you can convict people too. Make sure the punishments fit the crime. You got to be involved in the community. We can't just be victims of the community. We have to be engaged in the community. We have to volunteer our time. We have to complain to City Hall and to the mayor and to the police chief if our children are being mistreated by the police officers, because we're taxpayers. We can't just let them protect one neighborhood and we be the victims in the other neighborhood. We have to stand up and make sure that the police work in our behalf also. And that takes a time and sacrifice. And most of us, even the parents, will say, well, they're going to do what they want to do. It's only because we let them. There are many cities in which they don't do what they want to do, that have less minorities than we do. But it's because people actually sacrifice their time to go to jury duty, be on grand juries, volunteer to be on a grand jury, volunteer and complain, but complain with some action, and go out and find employers. I'm trying to find employers that will hire ex-cons, and I try to motivate my young boys to buy a house in the neighborhood you grew up in, fix it up. You know, they don't cost but $30,000 or $40,000. Maybe you can't get an apartment because you're a felon, but you can certainly buy the vacant house down the street that the crackheads inherited from the heirs for $30,000. That'll be about $300 a month, cheaper than rent. So there are ways that you can do things to make our own communities better, and we're just going to have to try to find those ways to be proactive and insist that our children do better.
Yes, because I do serve on I do attend our jury summons. I served on the jury twice.
Well, I appreciate that. And make sure you continue to be fair and impartial and to care about your community.
Yes, and I do that. And well, when I was in Cloverland, well, in anybody's community, I just homestead. I just go there and feel like I'm at home. And what else I wanted to say is that when my son had did wrong, I also turned him in. He had marijuana in my house, and I came home early from work. The door was open, and it was a large quantity, and I knew what he thought he was doing, and I called the police. Come get him.
Now, is his
Now,
father
have
involved?
this in my home.
Is his father involved in his life?
In and out. He's in and out, but he knows who his father is, and they had a close relationship. But what I think what his really turning moment was when he seen his best friend get killed in the front of him. And that's what started his drug use. When he should have been getting counseling, as I was trying to tell him he needed to talk about it and work it out. But instead, he turned to drugs.
And you know, as being African American people, we in our community don't think that we need therapy. Like, I haven't had therapy, but I went to a therapist one time last year, and I found out that I do need therapy. So as soon as I get some more insurance, I'm gonna continue getting my therapy, you know, because you know, that's why I try to talk about it. I try to help people because, you know, talking about it is my therapy. I found that when people die, you know, it's a certain, according to how the person died is how the living handle it. You know what I'm saying? But when you see people die tragically, that's very hard. And you know, talking about it, don't hold that stuff in, because you know, you can drink, you can use pills, you can do a lot of things to try to numb it, but the reality of it is not gonna go away.
Yes, they just want to medicate their feelings.
Exactly.
And let me tell you the way how to get therapy without paying for it is go to ACC or some college and go for drug counseling, and you can get the therapy. That's how I got the therapy that I needed while I was going to school to become a counselor.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
Well, thank you. We have 2 minutes. We're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. Please join us next week.
I sure will.
And if you ever know of any guests that want to be on, or if you want to be on and tell your story, or if you want to have your son come on when he gets out of boot camp. Is your son the one in boot camp?
No.
Okay,
that was the lady before.
That was the lady before. Okay, okay. Well, okay. Well, if you want to have your son come tell his story, or somebody, just call me at my phone number will be at the end, or you can Google Vivian King, Vivian R. King, and you can find me. I'd love to tell your story.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 1 minute, Rosalyn. So tell us, wrap this up and tell us what the moral to the story is.
The moral to the story is stay out of toxic relationships, whether you're a teenager, whether you're an adult. Support each other more, listen to your children, continue to try to lead them in the right direction, and for our judicial system to be fair. I mean, it's very important that the judicial system try to help the children instead of incarcerating them, because that's not the answer.
I agree with you on that.
And killing them is not the answer.
I agree with you on that.
Because they always say the children are the face of tomorrow, but if they're all dead, there won't be a face for tomorrow.
Or if they get locked up every time they make a mistake. We have to live in a society where we allow some mistakes to be made. I mean, so many of us who are now in the system, prosecuting people or in law enforcement, made a lot of mistakes. We all made a lot of mistakes, and but for the grace of God, we didn't get locked up. So there has to be mistakes that are forgivable. There have to be things, but the violent people do need to be locked up, because we do deserve to walk around the streets and to live our lives free of fear of being killed by somebody.
Exactly, I agree.
So we do need to balance law enforcement and citizens. We appreciate you watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King tonight. I hope we've enlightened you and educated you about some of the things that happened in Harris County. We hope that no one else has to die tragically like this, and that some young person can watch this show and realize that you can wait until tomorrow, cooler heads can prevail, and that you don't have to take the law into your own hands. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your call-ins, and I'll talk to you next week. And remember, I want to tell your story. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.